So again, I'd like to welcome you to today's TechNet Webcast. This is an in-depth look at Windows SharePoint Services and Office SharePoint Server 2007. It's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter. We have Arpan Shah here with us. And Arpan is a Group Product Manager with the SharePoint team. So Arpan, take it away.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Arpan Shah. I'm a Group Product Manager with SharePoint. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I have been in the SharePoint and content management space with Microsoft for the over the last 5 years. And I have been involved with the CMS 2001, CMS 2002, SPS 2003, and most recently, the Office SharePoint Server 2007 and WSS 3.0 releases. My team's responsibility is technical readiness, and we work very closely with the development team on the next versions of the products. So as you can tell, we're very excited about Office SharePoint Server 2007 and WSS 3.0. In the next hour or so, I'm going to provide an overview of WSS 3.0 and Office SharePoint Server 2007. I'm going to leave a lot of time at the end for questions, and I'm going to do a lot of demo. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this stuff, it'll provide a good overview. For those of you familiar with it, hopefully you gain something out of it. But just to remind everyone on the call, this is a 200-level session. So while it is technical, it is an overview. So here's the agenda for the presentation. There's a lot of content to cover. I will try my best to cover as much as I can, and I'm going to try and do as much demo as I can as well. I'm going to start very quickly with today's IT challenges, so give some perspective in terms of what were we thinking, what were the business challenges, what were we hearing from customers, what is essentially the reason why we built WSS 3.0 and Office SharePoint Server the way we did. Then I'm actually going to jump in and talk about the SharePoint vision. It's not the WSS vision as it's written here. It's actually the SharePoint technology vision. And then I'm going to dive into the feature areas. Now, I'm going to use a lot of acronyms throughout the session, just because if I said Windows SharePoint Services every single time, it would take a long time. So every time I say WSS, I'm talking about Windows SharePoint Services. And every time I say MOS, I'm talking about Microsoft Office SharePoint Server. So just to be clear, I will use those acronyms quite a bit. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. So just to talk a little bit about the IT challenges, and then we'll jump right into the technology. We talk to thousands of people, if you will, many enterprise customers, our MVPs, our field communities, our partner communities. And when we were looking at this most recent version of SharePoint technology, one of the big challenges that came out by talking to customers is that a lot of IT departments, a lot of customers have a need for many types of solutions. Now that sounds pretty obvious, but what we found is that a lot of enterprises invest in a bunch of siloed types of investments. So I'll give you an example. Enterprises need corporate web presence, they need a BI dashboard, they need collaboration, they need search, they need a project site, and they need all these different types of business productivity solutions. So most customers we talk to have many different types of investments. So they'll have investment A for collaboration, investment B for search, investment C for content management, investment D for records management. And what we decided to do was build one unified architecture so customers can host any type of business productivity application on the same infrastructure. So whether the phrase of the day is Web 2.0 or whether the phrase of the day is business productivity application, the point is that the SharePoint platform becomes the one platform that organizations can use to host and develop and self-service any type of business application. And what the promise leads to is one development experience. So if I develop a little bit of application, I don't have to develop it for the publishing site, and I don't have to develop it for the BI portal. I can just deploy to SharePoint, and then depending on who's using what app, they can just use that piece of functionality. So one development experience, one deployment experience. So IT pros have the same, IT professional has the same backup story, the same availability story, the same security story versus having to manage 4, 5, 6 different types of applications. And the last one, which is somewhat overlooked, is a common end user experience. So end users aren't constantly having to learn new applications. They're familiar with the interface, and SharePoint technology gives a really strong self-service, there's a strong self-service philosophy. So assuming people have rights, they can actually create the content, access the content, participate in the content very, very easily. And you'll see that throughout the demonstrations. I have a slide here which is basically for you to take home. It just talks about some of the other, like the business reasons or the business impact of having siloed investments or having all these little apps that are in different types of applications. And I've covered a few of these already, but this is something you can take home with you. So here's it's not SharePoint Services, it's SharePoint Vision. So the SharePoint technology vision is very simple. It is being able to host these business productivity apps in different types of scenarios. So we start from the personal site, and I'll show you a demonstration of that today, all the way to the internet site. So you can host a .com using SharePoint technology and everything in the middle. And again, you can use the same hardware, the same kind of, the same development, the same deployment, but the idea here is that you can actually serve up all these different types of scenarios by using the same technology. So SharePoint's vision is really to go from the individual all the way up to the internet website. And there's a strong also investment in terms of integrating with back-end systems. So we realize that customers have many investments, such as SAP, such as SQL, such as Oracle, such as Siebel, and other types of CRM systems. So we've actually done a lot of work helping organizations integrate with those back-end systems and making them more available to information workers. And I'll be talking about that once I start diving into the technology. So that's our vision. Here is a brief history slide, and then we jump right into features. For those of you familiar with SharePoint Portal Server 2001 and STS or SharePoint Team Services, we released that a few years ago, and we received really good feedback from customers. Customers said, hey, Portal Server is great, STS is really good, but you know what? They're not integrated. I really want to be able to use the dashboards I create in STS, I want to be able to use them in SPS 2001. And while there was a little bit of integration on the search end, that was it. So we took that feedback, and what was essentially a departmental solution many years ago, we actually took that feedback and we integrated the two technologies. So we released Office SharePoint Portal Server 2003, and we built it on top of WSS 2.0. And as many of you know, Windows SharePoint Services is a component of Windows. So that's something you can get with Windows Server 2003. And we built SharePoint Portal Server 2003 right on top of it. So web part architecture was the same, and there was much greater integration, and we really focused on scalability across an organization. Around the same time frame, actually, truth be told, it was 2001, we released a product in 2002 known as CMS 2002. And the focus of that product was web content management. So customers or enterprises could build scalable internet websites using Content Management Server 2002. And while customers loved the product, again, we had the same issue of, hey, wait a minute, you have this thing called SharePoint Stuff and you have CMS. Why do I have to manage these things, and when do I use what? And there was some overlap there. So we took that feedback and we stepped back and said, let's figure out where this is going. And what we decided to do was develop essentially a platform for building composite apps or business productivity apps. So now the evolution of Office SharePoint Portal Server 2003 and the evolution of CMS 2002 is Office SharePoint Server 2007. So people looking for the next version of CMS 2002, it's Office SharePoint Server 2007. And those of you looking for the next version of SPS 2003, it's the same product. Now, we took out the word portal because there's so much more than just being a portal, as you'll see throughout this presentation. So Office SharePoint Server 2007 builds right on top of WSS 3.0, and WSS 3.0 being part of Windows Server 2003. So that's a brief history lesson. By the way, WSS 3.0 is out today. You can download it and install it. as well as Office SharePoint Server 2007. Business availability was announced yesterday, and you can download the evaluation version today, and you can actually get it from MSDN. So this is not the future. This is very much technology that's available today. So now jumping into technology. And again, I apologize. This should say SharePoint feature areas. But the SharePoint feature areas, here's what we internally call the SharePoint pie. It's a colorful wheel that actually serves a purpose in terms of its color. So this wheel, or this pie, actually demonstrates all the different feature investments in SharePoint technology. The green is actually what's provided by Windows SharePoint Services. So Windows SharePoint Services provides a lot of the platform services. So it provides the site model, it provides the security model, it provides the topology model, and a lot of the self-service principles are right within Windows SharePoint Services. Along with that, Windows SharePoint Services provides the foundation of, it's a foundational pillar of Microsoft's collaboration technologies. So you get things like wikis out of the box, you get blogs out of the box, you get document workspaces, you get Office integration, and you get a whole lot of things. And I'll show you quite a bit of demo on what you get, and I'll start from a fresh site so you can get a really good feel of what you get with Windows SharePoint Services. So the green is what's provided by Windows SharePoint Services. The other wonderful colors demonstrate what you get with Office SharePoint Server 2007. Now, this is a technical talk, but Office SharePoint Server is something you'd have to purchase, and there are different types of licensing models that you should look into. But I won't be focusing on licensing in this session. So you'll see the different wheels, and now what I'm going to do throughout the next 45 minutes or so is I'm going to walk through the wheel and explain all the different investments. And then show short demos of what I'm talking about. So again, Office SharePoint Server right on top of WSS provides you with portal features, provides you with enterprise search. So Office SharePoint Server, just to be very clear, is very much the flagship product for enterprise search for Microsoft. And I'll speak more about that later. It provides a plethora of content management capabilities. So it's not just document management and it's not just web content management. It's also records management and a lot of workflow as well, workflow templates. And then we provide business forms and business forms and integration. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then lastly, I'll end with a discussion on BI. So we have things like KPIs and we have things like server-based Excel in the product. So this is a slide that I might come back to later. This is really something for you to take home. This slide kind of denotes the functional architecture of SharePoint Server. Again, there's someone's actually gone and edited the slide deck for some reason, but it should be SharePoint Server functional architecture. The stuff in green is Windows SharePoint Services, and the other colors are Office SharePoint Server. So again, this is just a logical or functional architecture of the pie you just saw, and you'll see that it's built right on top of the Windows platform. So no surprise, operating system services is Windows. And ASP.NET, now this is something that's important. Windows SharePoint Services is actually built using the ASP.NET 2.0 Web Part Framework. And basically what this means is that if you are a ASP.NET 2.0 developer, developing on the SharePoint platform is actually not a big step. And there should, and one of the things I tell developers all the time is there should be there shouldn't be a discussion or a question of whether you develop with ASP.NET 2.0 or SharePoint technology. It's a matter of developing with ASP.NET 2.0 and SharePoint technology. So the key here is that SharePoint technology provides a lot of functionality out of the box that you don't have to go ahead and develop from scratch. So you can actually focus on your own custom logic and your own custom applications without having to worry about some of the core features that we provide out of the box. And the backend database where all the data is stored is actually SQL Server 2000 or 2005. And it's also important to note that Windows SharePoint Services hosts Windows Workflow Foundation. So those of you familiar with Windows Workflow Foundation, it's part of the Windows platform, and it's the workflow engine that we ship, that Microsoft ships. And with Windows SharePoint Services, you can create workflows that are exposed to information workers. And if you have Office SharePoint Server, you get a bunch of workflow templates out of the box, which you'll see a demonstration of. So let's jump into the first part, which would be the center of the pie, and that's platform services. So again, this is what Windows SharePoint Services provides, or WSS provides. So let's move to the next slide. So there's a lot of excuse me. There are a lot of things that we've invested in this version of WSS 3.0. So the first thing I want to point out is there's a lot of great user experience enhancements. So one of the most noticeable ones is that we've actually done what we're calling security trimming out of the box. So what that means is customers will only see links and will only see content and will only see navigation and will only see actions to which they have access to. So one of the challenges or one of the pieces of feedback we received with WSS 2.0 was, hey, WSS 2.0 actually shows all the actions, and it actually shows some of the stuff that a person may not have access to, so we actually do a lot of trimming so people can't access or can't act on something that they're not allowed to. We've actually made a tremendous investment in customization as well. Because we're built on ASP.NET 2.0, things like master pages, things like building your own navigation provider are all possible. So we support master pages with SharePoint technology, and you'll see a demonstration of that, as well as support the nav provider model that is in ASP.NET 2.0. So now you can create your own ASP.NET 2.0 nav provider and actually stick it into SharePoint, and you can actually get your own navigation. And we provide a lot of navigation out of the box with Office SharePoint Server, but you can choose your own. We have much better navigation in terms of breadcrumbs. We have single item security from a security perspective. So there are a lot of enhancements we've made in the user experience arena. Platform improvements. I've already mentioned ASP.NET 2.0. So what you're looking at is now SharePoint development has gone mainstream. And if I have time at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing to actually get some of the content out there in terms of learning about SharePoint technology. Windows SharePoint Services hosts Windows Workflow Foundation. So using SharePoint Designer or using Visual Studio, folks can actually go ahead and develop their own custom workflows. So if you have certain workflows that you want to create, document workflows, you can actually just go ahead without writing a single line of code, use SharePoint Designer, create your workflows, and it's a rules-based type of wizard. It's kind of like the Outlook rules, where you can choose the different rules and then deploy the workflow without writing a single line of code. Alternatively, we also, of course, because we host Windows Workflow Foundation, you can develop your own custom workflows, and we actually have a workflow kit, which is part of the SDK. And in fact, we have a lot of workflow articles that were written by Elaine Ho, who is our workflow program manager, and that's actually on the SharePoint team blog. So again, if you're a developer, I encourage you to take a look at that. We made a lot of list enhancements. So scalability is a big deal. Like now, SharePoint Document Library can store hundreds of thousands of elements. So that's one big area of improvement. We have a notion of content type. Content type is a very powerful feature in WSS because now an organization can create different types of content or categories of content. So I can create something known as a press release. So let's say I want to create a press release, and with that press release I want to have a certain document template. With that press release I want to have certain types of metadata. I want to have certain types of workflow, and I want to have certain types of IRM policies on it. I can define it in one place, and then I can reuse that type of the content type everywhere throughout my SharePoint deployment. So it's a very powerful feature, and if I have time, I'll actually show you a demo of how powerful content type can be. There are a lot of improvements we made in manageability. So one of the things I want to point out is now we have a recycle bin for any list item and any folders. So if anyone actually deletes something, we have a two-step recycle bin, which I'll show you a demo on. And there are a variety of other things, such as support for ADFS. which is another thing that we got a lot of feedback on. Here's some screenshots for you. It's very bland demoing security trim UI, so I just put some screenshots together that you can actually take home, which just shows you how different commands and different elements are only available depending on security. And now I'm going to jump into collaboration, shortly talk about it, and then jump as quickly as I can to demonstration. So again, just to be very clear, given that we only have an hour and I've been told to cover WSS and Office SharePoint Server, I am by no means providing an exhaustive presentation on collaboration. This itself could be several hours of discussion. But I figured I'd pivot on a few things. And the first thing I want to pivot on is some of the core improvements we made. Now, those of you familiar with SharePoint technology, SharePoint at the very highest level consists of three elements. It consists of what are known as web parts. Web parts are, again, if you're an ASP.NET 2.0 developer, you know what a web part is. If you're not, think of web part as a mini application. Other terms in the industry that are used are portlets. Other terms in the industry that are used are gadgets. And web parts are essentially mini applications built on ASP.NET 2.0 that can be reused over and over by an information worker and can be personalized. So that's one element. The second element you want to think about is our SharePoint lists. So content in SharePoint is almost always stored in a SharePoint list, and we have many different types of lists. And document library is a special type of list, which has check-in, which has checkout, and other types of collaborative features. So we made a lot of enhancements to document libraries, which I will demonstrate. But some of the things that come to mind are things like RSS support for all lists, things like versioning, major and minor versioning, and mobile views, and et cetera. And I'll talk more about it later, but made a lot of improvements there. And the third element of a SharePoint solution, if you will, is a site. And the site kind of puts the lists and it puts the web parts together. Now, I'm oversimplifying this, but that's the way to look at it. A site is a container that contains lists and contains web parts, right? And there's a bunch of other stuff that goes with it, but fundamentally you can take a look at that's what SharePoint technology is really all about. And then you have different types of web parts, different types of lists, different types of sites, allowing you to develop custom solutions. The second pivot over here is anywhere access. We've actually done a lot of work in allowing people to take the content or access the content in many easy ways. Some of the things that I just want to talk about is our Outlook 2007 integration. So with Outlook 2007, you can take document libraries offline. You could take contacts. So document libraries you can take offline, and then we have two-way synchronization with contacts, tasks, and calendars. So now you can take a calendar and you can actually go ahead and have the same type of experience with a SharePoint calendar as you do with a personal calendar. So that's very nice. Mobile views, out of the box you provide a mobile view for every list out there, so you get that out of the box. And we also have RSS support for every list in SharePoint. So any list that you have, and you'll see through the demonstration that there are many different types of lists, you can have alerts and you can have RSS very easily. The last thing I'd like to pivot on in this section is community and communication. I'm proud to say that many years ago, when I say many, I mean about 3-4 years ago, when we started planning this version of SharePoint technology that we've released, we saw a big trend on Web 2.0 concepts like wikis, like blogs. And we made a big bet and a big investment in those types of capabilities. So with Windows SharePoint Services, you get wikis and you get blogs out of the box. And I'm going to show you a demonstration of that in just a little bit. Here's some slides. I've already talked about it, but here's some slides you can take home with you. Here's another slide you can take and look back at when you have some time. And now I'm going to jump into a demo. So please bear with me while I share my application. Now I'm assuming everyone can see this. What I decided to do was I decided to demonstrate the out-of-the-box capabilities of SharePoint technology. I was thinking about doing a custom demo, and then I realized, well, I really want to make sure people understand what you get out of the box. So what you see in everything I'm going to demo today is essentially out-of-the-box capabilities, and I'm going to just show you the different types of capabilities that you have in SharePoint technology. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to create a, let's start with something fun. Let's start with a wiki. So the first thing you'll notice is that in SharePoint technology, I mentioned this before, there's a very strong self-service philosophy. And I want to be extremely clear here that it is self-service. However, it's the right balance between self-service and IT pro manageability. So as an IT professional, you can set quotas, you can set permissions, you can actually dictate where and how people can create sites. So while it's self-service, you can actually manage who and how sites get created. So I'm going to go ahead and create a site. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create a document workspace. So let's call this Webcast. I can choose a description. This is a test document workspace for a webcast. I'm going to choose the URL. And by the way, everything you're seeing is out of the box. And you'll see that in SharePoint, there's a notion of a template. A template can be a user-defined template. A template can be developed by a developer. And when you create a site, a user chooses from a template. So that way they get a predefined experience, and they don't have to start from scratch when they're building a solution. We also ship with 40 out-of-the-box templates for WSS that address common scenarios. So if you haven't seen that, you should check it out. So essentially, you don't have to do a lot of the work for common scenarios. So you'll see that there are a variety of sites for collaboration, and there are different tabs for different types of templates. But let's just show you a document workspace. I can actually go ahead and categorize it, do a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and create it. And what it's doing now is it's actually creating a site for me, and there you go. I've just gone ahead, created a site, and voila, I have something to start with. And now, as a site admin, and again, remember, a site administrator is just an information worker, I can choose and I can start modifying stuff on this site. So I can say, you know what? I want to close this web part because I don't want to have an announcement. And you know what? I want to go ahead and add other types of web parts. So I can go ahead, I can choose a web part to add. Let's say I want to add, let's find something interesting. Actually, one web part that actually, and you'll see that the UI for web parts is actually much better. Let's choose a page viewer web part just because it's easy to demo. A page viewer is an extremely simple application, and now I can go ahead and configure this web part to do what I want. So I'm going to say, you know what? I want this page viewer web part to show me Microsoft.com. Extremely simple, kind of a silly example, and not super relevant here, but I just want to show you what a web part is. And now I just showed you how easily I can, as an information worker, get some functionality on my screen. I can choose my appearance. I can choose the layout. I can choose a bunch of things. And now I can actually go ahead and drag and drop this guy anywhere I want. So again, it's very easy for information workers to actually go ahead and build the solution they want. Now, in this particular example, I want to show you some collaboration since we're on that topic. And I'm going to start with the document library. So when you choose a document workspace, automatically you get something known as a shared documents library. Now, if I take a look over here where you see view all site content, this shows me a list of everything that's in the site. So automatically, because I started from the document workspace template, I get the shared document library, shared documents document library. I get the announcements list, calendars, I get the team discussion board, and if I want, I can actually very easily go ahead and create other items. So here's what I was talking about. Libraries are just special types of lists that have special functionality, and you'll see almost everything here is a list, and as an information worker, I can choose what I want. And again, this is all assuming you have permissions. So if I wanted to, I could create a wiki page library, for example. I could create a project tasks list. But for now, let's just stick with the document library. And let me go ahead and upload a couple documents here. Now, I may have to share my desktop for this. Let me do that. I apologize. Let me share my desktop here. Share. Desktop. Now you can actually see my desktop, so I have to be a little careful demoing. But now you should be able to see my desktop. And now I can go ahead and upload multiple documents. And I'm actually just going to choose, let's see. I will choose, I have a folder here that actually has some documents. And over here, I have a couple documents here that I can go ahead and upload. So I'm just going to go ahead and upload a couple of these guys. Click OK. And now, everyone in my team can access these documents. Now, people can start collaborating, people can start working on these documents, and there are a number of ways of getting access to these documents. So again, for those of you that are more familiar with Windows Explorer, you can actually open this up with Windows Explorer. As you can see, there's an RSS feed for people who want to subscribe to a feed. Then just click things that I want to show on each document. You have a variety of things. I can apply a workflow, which I'll talk about later in the content management section. I can check it out. I can actually sign up for an alert. I can send this in a number of ways. But what I'm going to do before I do anything, believe it or not, is I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Actually, before I delete this, I just want to point out how we have single item security. So you can actually go ahead and assign this to a particular user. The first thing I'll do, believe it or not, is I'm going to go ahead and delete this item just to showcase one of the new features, which is a recycle bin. So I can go to the recycle bin, and as a user, I can restore it, and it's a two-step recycle bin. So if I actually delete it again, an IT pro can actually go ahead and restore it. So if I go back to my document library, you'll see that it's right there. So that's just a simple example. The other thing I'd like to point out is all the different document library options in this version. So now with WSS, you can choose your RSS settings. You can actually choose version settings over here. So I can choose whether I want major versions, whether I want minor versions, what the limit is on how many I should keep. I can also choose whether a document must be checked out. So some people may want to keep a track of every single minor version. So you can enforce a checkout by just choosing this button. The other thing that I'd like to point out is how I can now take these documents with me in Outlook. So if I click on Connect to Outlook over here, you'll notice I'm using Vista with. So now, I apologize, Outlook just over here. It's actually going to bring down those documents down to my Outlook. And because of Outlook 2007's document preview functionality, I actually get to see, I can actually see the image very easily. I can actually see my documents and start and preview them. Or I can go ahead and open them up, right? So again, I can take my documents with me. The other thing I'd like to show very quickly is our calendar and Outlook integration. So with SharePoint, you get team calendars, and you can create as many calendars as you want. And over here, you'll see that it's a blank calendar because we just created the site. We can actually go ahead and create a quick entry. So let's go ahead and create here's the webcast. Let's say the webcast was from 11 to 1. Sorry, I have PSTs that I don't have loaded here. Here, 11 to 1. So let's say it's a live meeting. And that's it, live meeting webcast. So that's pretty nice. I can actually go ahead. I could sign up for alerts if I wanted to. But what I want to do as an information worker is I don't want to have to go to SharePoint all the time to see it. So now users can actually go and open this up in Outlook. And now I can actually look at my Outlook calendar. And I can actually overlay this with my personal calendar. So here's my calendar. Here's the SharePoint calendar. I can separate them if I want, and I can drag and drop them if I want. So I'm having lunch with Jeff Weir at 12. I could drag this, drop it to my SharePoint calendar, say yes, and if I do, I believe it's F9, So let's go ahead and send and receive this folder. With a little bit of luck, if I refresh, there you go. So it's a two-way synchronization, and the same thing goes for tasks, the same thing goes for contacts and calendars. So again, information workers can really choose the experience they want, whether it's on the browser, whether it's on the client. So there are a lot of great examples of Office integration. That's just a quick demo of what you can do. So let's get back to slides. So that's a quick demonstration of the collaboration. Actually, you know what? I was told I can go a little over. So let me just show you. Let me show you something that is really easy. So I can actually. So remember, I told you there are many different types of templates. So let's go ahead and create a different type. So let's call it a blog, and I'm going to go ahead and create a blog. And I just want to show you how easy it is. So if you're looking to create a blogging infrastructure in your organization, you can do that with WSS. So literally within less than a second, I created my own blog. And now I can go ahead and create a post. I can manage my posts and do a bunch of things. So let's say I wanted to create a post. Hey, this is great. Now this is this is great, and this is typical of what you would expect, right? This is very similar to blogging engines out there. But let me show you one of the neat things that you can actually do with Word 2007 as well. And this integrates right with Windows SharePoint services. So I could actually, let's go ahead and load up Word 2007. So we have full fidelity blogging through the browser, but let's say I wanted to blog using Word. So now I can actually go ahead. Let's publish this as a blog. So there's a blog template. I could say Webcast sample post. This is great. Now I just created a blog. So what I want to do is I want to manage account, and I want to create a new account. I want to create a new account. My blog provider is SharePoint. I click Next. The blog URL, I shamelessly forgot, it's just blog, R. Riley OSS whack blog. R. Riley OSS/blog. I click OK. I'll say yes. Say yes. Account registration successful. Here's blog 1. Let's set this as default. I'll click OK. Account, I'll choose blog 1. I said, hey, this is great, and let's publish this. Say yes. It says the post was published to blog 1, which is the blog we just created. If I refresh, you'll notice that, hey, webcast sample post, hey, this is great. So just a really, really simple example of how easy it is to post with Word, right? Or you could use a browser. And if you're wondering, well, wait a minute, how come this post is lower than this one? It's because this blog was created at 10:09, and I should have waited for about a minute. So at 10:10, it would have actually it would have posted higher. But in any case, you guys get the idea of what you can do. And similarly, you can actually very easily go ahead and create a wiki right out of the box. So let's go ahead and create a wiki. And everything you're seeing is out of the box. And you can create multiple wikis. So just to give you an example, at Microsoft, we're actually using the wiki capabilities to actually let people in the Microsoft community update links to different types of SharePoint content. So over here, depending on the permissions, anyone can go and edit this and say, test 1, 2, 3. Let's say I want to change this to red, and I want to bold it, underline it, click OK, and there you go. And again, there's version history, so you can always see the different versions of the wiki. Okay, so that's the collaboration demo. So let's go back to slides. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about search. So going through the different, going down the SharePoint pie, I'm going to briefly talk about search, and search itself could be a whole session in itself. but I did want to highlight some of the new things that we've done in Office SharePoint Server. So now we're actually getting into the Office SharePoint Server section. And again, just to remind people, Microsoft Office SharePoint Server, or MOS, is built right on top of Windows SharePoint Services. And what Office SharePoint Server does is it provides you with enterprise search. So in this version, we've actually invested a lot in relevancy. So relevancy for us was the top priority when it came to search, and we focused on enterprise relevancy. So MSN and Google search, for example, focus on internet search capabilities, and what we've done with Office SharePoint Server is focus on enterprise search. And based on collaborating with Microsoft Research, we found that there's a distinct difference between enterprise search and internet search. For starters, there's a lot less metadata. Believe it or not, internally, there's a lot less cross-linking. You don't have people doing web pages cross-linking. Security is really important on the internet. And also, it's not just web pages on the internet. You have documents, you have business data, and you have other types of content that you don't typically have on the internet. So we've actually addressed all of that in Office SharePoint Server. And those of you not familiar with SPS 2003, with Office SharePoint Server 2007, we can search any kind of website. We can search SharePoint sites. We can search Exchange public folders. We can search Lotus Notes databases. We can search file shares. And in addition to all of those, in this latest version, we can also search business data. So business data includes a line of business applications like SAP and Siebel, and one of the new features in Office SharePoint Server is something known as the Business Data Catalog. And the Business Data Catalog is a way of defining a connection to a backend source, and a backend source that exposes itself through ADO.NET or XML Web Services through an XML file. And by specifying the query and specifying the metadata and specifying the entities, SharePoint can actually go ahead and search and index that information and make it available in the SharePoint environment. Again, this is a rather deep and interesting topic, but the takeaway I want from this webcast is that with the Business Data Catalog, you can actually connect a line of business applications and search that. So as an example, at Microsoft, we actually connected it to the CRM system we use, and we have all our customers now exposed through search. So people can very easily search for accounts and understand what the customer situation is, understand who the account team is, et cetera, et cetera. So if your company is interested in, for example, if you have an Oracle database, and if you want to make that information available easily, you could use SharePoint Search. End user experience, we have something now known as a search center, and I'll show you a quick demo of it. So you can actually choose or create a tabbed interface. It's very much like live search or Google search, so that we've taken that feedback, or we've learned from the experience from other different search systems that this is something that users like, so we've actually given that flexibility in this version. We've also done a lot of things on the search basics. So we have things out of the box, query hit highlighting, duplicate collapsing. So if you have the same document spread across the organization 4 or 5 times, we only show one version, and you can actually span if you want. We have query correction, the typical did you mean that you see on Live or Google. We have alerts, and we have much more. So just in general, the user experience is something we invested in. And for those of you who are developers or IT professionals, one of the other things we've done is really made it really easy to customize. So search results, for example, all return in XML, and you can apply your own XSL to the XML and choose how you want the results to be rendered. So you have a lot of flexibility with this product. Across repositories, I talked about this, so I won't spend any more time, and you can take a look at this. But essentially, you can actually go ahead and connect to other line of business applications very easily. Improved manageability. Again, this is a slide that you can take a look at later. The point I really want to make here is that we've improved scalability quite significantly. So we support 50 million items per SharePoint index. And the other thing I want to point out here, there are a lot of things here, but the other thing I want to point out is performance for crawling SharePoint sites has dramatically improved because we do something known as we look at change logs. So now when we crawl a SharePoint site, we look at what's changed versus recrawling everything. So by looking at what's changed, we significantly reduce our incremental crawling time, and that's a new capability. And couple that with continuous propagation, which is essentially the feature that takes information from the index server and propagates it to the search web servers, so that way that information is available. If you couple those two things together, performance for crawling and searching have improved significantly. Okay, so let's do a quick demo. Now, unfortunately, I can't do a fantastic demo because what I would like to do is actually show you how we use it at Microsoft, but for many reasons, including just, I don't want to get in trouble by legal and what have you, so I can't really show you the rich search functionality because search is only fun to show if you have a really rich corpus. So what I'll do right now is just show you some really simple stuff. So this is, again, a demo site that's actually on Richard Riley's, which Richard Riley has put together. And what you'll notice is that we have something known, this is Search Center. So in Search Center, by the way, SharePoint can also help search for expertise. So you can actually go ahead and search for people. I forgot to mention that. And that information, people information, is actually based on a SharePoint profile that can get imported from Active Directory or imported from an LDAP directory. So that's another thing that we support in this version. So right now, if I wanted to search for, let's say I want to search for everything, and I wanted to search for my name, being the narcissist I am, I find that there are a lot of PowerPoints that I've done. Now, the reason why you see a bunch of PowerPoints is Richard has actually gone ahead and searched all our conference information. So I can see, here's query hit highlighting. You can see their duplicates. So if I click on View Duplicates, you'll actually see that, oh, wait a minute, these two decks, the search engine has noticed are exactly the same, except they've been titled differently. And you'll notice, wow, actually it makes a lot of sense because I presented this at TechEd US, I presented this at TechEd Australia, and they're just titled a little differently, but they're actually the same content. So just a quick demo on that. And the other thing, just to show you the power of keyword search, I could do things like file type PPT, and you'll notice that this isn't a PowerPoint and this isn't a PowerPoint. And if I actually click on search here, you'll see that only PowerPoint files show up. So again, there's a lot of rich functionality, and of course there's advanced search where someone can actually go ahead and choose the different types of properties and append properties and so on and so forth. So that's the only search I can show, unfortunately. Let's see if people search works. Because this is a demo box, I'm not sure if we'll get anything here, but let's see. Oops. No, there's nothing. Again, this is just a standalone box, so we haven't imported the profiles here. Okay, so let's go back to slides. All right. Okay, here are some screenshots for you to take home. Just a small caveat, these screenshots are a little older. They're not based on RTM. So just keep that in mind that they don't 100% represent how it looks today. It looks better now that we've released. But you can actually take a look at some of the things that we were talking about before. Just trying to move across the slides. Here's an example of information coming from an SAP system using that business data catalog feature I mentioned. Here's an example of people search, finding experts in an organization. And of course, we have LCS integration. So if you have LCS, an Office Communicator, you can actually go ahead and very easily start messaging people. Portal. Portal is, again, we've continued to make investments, and I've actually just listed a couple things here. I've already talked about people and expertise search, but the one thing I want to point out here is that we've made a significant improvement or investment in social networking. And again, I'm really happy that we did this because, again, we started planning this many years ago, and that was before things like Friendster and Orkut really took off. So now if you look at MySpaces, if you look at Orchid, if you look at Friendster, you're beginning to see that a phenomena on the internet that has taken off in the last 12 months or so, now you can do that right out of the box with Office SharePoint Server. And again, same thing goes with blogs and wikis and all these other Web 2.0 concepts. They're all available for you to actually go ahead and deploy out of the box. So I'm actually just going to show you a really quick demo. But before I do that, I just want to point out that you can import people. I mentioned this from an LDAP directory, which includes Atom, since Atom is an LDAP directory, or Active Directory. And we also have done a lot more work with terms of targeting and personalization. So you can actually target content and web parts to Exchange DLs if you want. And we've done a lot more work from a personalization perspective in terms of the web parts we ship. And if we have time at the end, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Just before I jump into a short demo, I do want to talk a little bit about our multilingual support. There may be people on the call who may be wondering, hey, Arpan, this is great, but what about different languages? We've actually made significant improvements on multilingual support in this version. And I would break up our multilingual support in two ways. One is we have the ability to host different applications in different languages on the web server farm. This is a vast improvement from SPS 2003, where you could only have one language on one farm. So that's one thing where we've received a lot of great feedback on. The other thing, which is actually a scenario which would make most sense for a publishing scenario, so if you're looking at web content management solutions, we've actually included a feature known as a variation feature that helps organizations orchestrate publishing in different languages. So essentially what you can do with Office SharePoint Server is you can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to create this site which is going to host my case studies in this example, and I want to have the same case studies in German, and I want to have the same case studies in French. So what you can do as an administrator is set up your English site as your source site, and you can set up German and French as your variation sites or your target sites. And then what Office SharePoint Server will do is it will help you manage the orchestration of content. So what you would do, essentially, is you would install Office SharePoint Server, you would install the German and the French language packs, and then when you create your variation, you want to create your German site using the you want to create the German site using the German language pack, and you want to create the French site using the French language pack, and then you basically create a relationship here, and now anytime a web page gets approved in the English site, it will actually kick that off after it's been approved to the German and the French sites. Now we don't automatically translate, but we support or we provide this orchestration technology that allows an organization to really have a multilingual publishing environment. I want to be very clear that this makes sense for web pages. In a collaborative scenario, what you would want to do is you would have different sites in different languages. Or you can use a partner solution if you wanted to move stuff across the two. Okay, so before I jump into content management, I just wanted to show a 60-second demo on the portal capabilities. And I am going to cheat a little here because I'm going to show you my site at Microsoft, which I think is safe. So over here, this, by the way, at Microsoft we deployed Office SharePoint Server 2007, and I'm going to very quickly show you how this looks like. This is a live site, and over here you can see a really bad picture of me, which I should change, and you can see my title, which is from Active Directory. You can see a lot of other information. You can actually see the documents I'm working on. You can see my colleagues. You can see a lot of social networking, memberships, DLs I'm members of. And if I go to another person's site, which I'm not going to click on, if I go to, let's say, Richard's site, I can see all the things that are in common with me and Richard. So again, very much like if you're thinking of MySpaces or thinking of other types of social networking software out there on the internet, it's very much bringing that into the enterprise. Okay, let's jump back to slides real quick. And I'm going to speed through this a little quicker because we're almost up on the hour. Enterprise content management can be, the way I like to break it up is into essentially 4 buckets. So with Office SharePoint Server, we provide large document management capabilities, and I want to be very clear here. Office SharePoint Server is able to handle enterprise scale document libraries. So we absolutely are looking at Office SharePoint Server to become the document management system for organizations. So organizations who want to collaborate and work on team spaces, they could use Windows SharePoint Services, but Office SharePoint Server provides you with enterprise document management. The other way to look at the investments in content management is workflow. So remember, I said that WSS hosts Windows Workflow Foundation, allowing people to very easily create workflows. But with Office SharePoint Server, we give you a bunch of workflows out of the box that can be very easily configured. And if I have time, I'm going to show you a quick demo of that. Then the third one is policy and compliance. Another way of looking at this is records management. So we provide you with out-of-the-box records management capabilities. And the last one is web content management, which is close to my heart because I came from the CMS side, and with Office SharePoint Server, you have web content management capability. So you can actually go ahead, have an authoring environment for your organization, and then set up publishing rules to deploy outside. So we have full fidelity web content management. And in fact, I'm going to show you a very quick example of that in my demo. Some investments here, I am actually going to skip these slides, and it's something you can read because I will talk through it when I demo. I'd rather focus on demo. But here's another slide that talks about the workflow and the different ways you can interact with the workflow in Office SharePoint Server. Here are some other investments. I mentioned web content management, mentioned records management. And here's a really good functional architecture. One of the questions I get from customers is, Arpan, I'm a little confused. There's Windows SharePoint Services, there's Office SharePoint Server. What do I get with what? So this slide it's an attempt at explaining, here are the features you get with WSS, and here are the features you get with Office SharePoint Server. So it's very clear in your minds what you get with one and the other. Here's another really good slide that kind of distinguishes what you get with WSS and what you get with Office SharePoint Server for those of you looking to make a decision. And let me just jump into demo. So let's go ahead and share my desktop. Okay, again, I am going to show you out-of-the-box stuff. So let's go back to this sandbox here. And this is Richard's box, and as long as Richard hasn't changed anything and I have permissions, I will show you a couple basic things. So the first thing I want to show you is how easy it is to customize this. So one of the things I mentioned is you could use Office SharePoint Server to do web content management. And a lot of customers say, yeah, but Arpan, I don't know. I mean, this looks so much like SharePoint. I can't really have this doesn't look anything like an internet site. So I mentioned this, in the last 60 minutes I mentioned a lot of things, but one of the things I talked about was customization. And because Office SharePoint Server is built on ASP.NET 2.0, we take advantage of something known as master pages. So if I go to Site Settings, and if I go to Modify All Site Settings and take a look at master page, you will see that assuming I have the rights, I can actually choose a master page to apply to my site. So again, developers would go ahead and develop these master pages, but now site administrators can actually choose the look and feel, and this look and feel can also be pushed down from a site. So the challenges of branding, the challenges of look and feel all go away with this version because we built on top of ASP.NET 2.0. So now I've changed the look and feel. If I go back, you'll see, voila. There you go. And by the way, all those master pages were master pages we ship out of the box, but of course you could go develop your own. It's not rocket science. So over here, I just showed you how easy it is to change the look and feel. Pretty dramatic. And now let me just show you a couple things very easily on the web content management front. I'm an admin on this, so I could very easily go ahead and edit this page. And you'll notice that here are things that we called field controls in this version. If you're a CMS customer, they were known as placeholders before. And these are the areas where my page layout designer has said I can actually go ahead and change content. The other difference you'll notice, and one of the other core things to keep in mind, is that web content management isn't just about web content, but it's also about applications. So as an author, I can actually add web parts to this page. So you actually get the best of both worlds. So let me show you how easy it is to actually go ahead and edit. So you'll see that there's a rich inline text editing. It's WYSIWYG. So I can go ahead, I could bold, I could color this red. I could do a variety of things. There's some nice good features. Whoops, let me try that again. For some reason it didn't work. I'm not sure. It might be because I'm in live meeting. But in any case, there's a variety of things you can do here. I can italicize, I can underline, and now what you actually get is you get this great experience where people don't have to know HTML. Some of the new features that some people may not know about, just want to point out a couple of the new features. One is this ability to insert reusable content. So you can now have a library of reusable fragments, and you can insert it. So that way you have a central repository of fragments. We also have really good table support now. So you can actually go ahead and insert a table and actually choose different types of formats. I can choose a number. Let's say I want to choose this format. And there you go. I've inserted a table. We also can choose very easily. You can choose the different styles. So let's say I want this to be, article title. So, there's a lot of great functionality here. So I can go ahead and publish it. And again, very simple example. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you would create a page from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and create a page. And when you create a page, the first thing you're asked to do, let's call this a press release. The first thing you're asked to do when you create a page is choose what's known as a page layout. A page layout is just an ASPX page that can be developed using SharePoint Designer. And a page layout, think of it as a wireframe. So press release or an article page, and we ship with a bunch of page layouts, and you can create your own page layout. In CMS land, this was known as a template. I can go ahead and let's say I want to choose article page with image on right. I can create. And now I can actually go ahead and fill the data in. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the article date as today, byline, let's put myself. Page image, let's see. I'm going to browse for an image, and I'm going to go ahead and upload a new image that I have. And what I did today was I actually took a small version of a press release that just released today at Microsoft. And let's see, I put it in this folder where I put everything else. And I have this image here. I'm going to go ahead and upload this image. And there you go. There's that image there. I don't know if people can see it, but I've uploaded that image. And now if I go ahead and refresh this, I see this image here. I'm going to choose this image. Put Steve Ballmer. I could hyperlink this if I wanted to. So let's hyperlink it to Microsoft.com. I could choose the alignment, specifies the size. I'll click OK. You know what? I should have probably specified the size. So let's specify the size as 200. There you go. There's that image. And now I can go ahead and insert page content. Now I've actually gone ahead, and like I said, I've actually gone ahead and taken some of that content, press release, and put in a Word doc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this guy, and let's go back here. I'm going to go ahead, edit, and I'm going to paste it in. And what you'll notice is how easy it is. It actually keeps the formatting, and I can actually choose, you'll see this little control here, I can choose whether I want to remove inline styles, keep text only, keep inline styles, and then I can make some mods if I wanted to. So let's try this one more time. I'm not sure why. Let's try a different color. There you go. And I can change the style if I wanted to. So let's call this the article headline. Let's call this the style, and you can choose what styles you want. Let's call this the headline. Nope, not the headline. Let's call it the title, I think. Article title. And I can actually, do a variety of things. You'll also notice that there are tables here. So if I click on this guy over here, you'll notice that the table control, this realizes the table, and I could actually go ahead and edit the table. But I'll just leave it as is. And I will go ahead and publish this. Now typically, and if I had time, I would show you how to do it. You would have a workflow. So you can actually go ahead and create a workflow. You can kick off a workflow, and then different people can approve it. You can have parallel workflow or serial workflow. You have a lot of choices of workflow. The other demo I would like to show real quick, actually, you know what? Let's just show workflow. Since we have some time, I'm going to go to the Webcast document library that I showed before. And by the way, I didn't push the style down to all the sites. So anyway, over here I have a document. It's called the 2007 Office System and Web 2.0 White Paper. And what I would like to do is have a workflow where I'd like to have people approve it. So one of the things I can do is I can attach a workflow to a document library, or I can attach a workflow to a content type. And remember, a content type is a categorization of content. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and create a workflow for the document library. I'm going to create a simple approval workflow. And as you'll notice, we have several workflow templates out of the box with Office SharePoint Server. I'm going to call this Webcast Approval. I can choose a task list where the tasks are. I can choose a bunch of things. I can choose how the workflow gets started. I can have this get started every time an item is changed, every time an item is created. I'm going to say have it be manually started. And now this workflow is configurable. So now people can actually go ahead and choose the different approvals. You can choose parallel, serial, a bunch of things. And I'm going to go ahead and choose, for purpose of this demo, I'm going to just put myself as the approver. Please approve this. Kind of a silly example, but just want to show there are a lot of other parameters here. Again, you can create your own workflows, and I'll click OK. And now I've created this workflow on this document library. So now what I want to do is initiate that workflow on this paper. And again, it doesn't have to be a Word doc. It doesn't have to be an Office doc. It could be a PDF. It could be your own custom doc. Workflow could be attached to any item in the document library, or in a list actually. So now I can click on this workflows. It'll ask me which workflow I want. I'm going to click on the one we just created. And now I can choose to change this if I want. I don't want to. I click Start. And I will actually get an email saying, hey, by the way, a workflow has been started, yada yada. But right now I actually don't, right now I'm not going to bring up the email. But what I do want to show is how you can actually look at the progress of a workflow very easily. So if I click on In Progress over here, I can see that, hey, the workflow is initiated, and the task was created for Arpan, which is me, and I can actually see here's the task for me. Now there are two ways you can actually go ahead and approve a workflow on an Office document. Now if it's not an Office document, the way you would approve it is through the browser. You would actually go and say, hey, approve. But what I wanted to show was the client integration here. So if I went ahead over here and actually brought this document up, and typically what I would do, let's see if the emails come. Typically what I would actually do is I would actually bring this up. I would get an email and I could actually go to the browser and approve it. But what I would like to show is a client integration here. So this integration is only with is with Office 2007. And when I bring this document in here, this document knows, hey, wait a minute, there's a workflow task here. And this workflow task, I can go ahead and edit this. And this workflow task, hey, you have to go ahead and approve this. And again, it's a silly example, but I can say this looks great. And I can go ahead and approve this right from Word. And there are a lot of other things that I haven't shown, but the Office integration with SharePoint technology is really, really seamless and convenient. So this is one example, but another example would be metadata, where I can actually go ahead and change metadata of a document through Office. I could also reassign, I could request change. I'm going to go ahead and approve this. It's actually calling an XML web service on the server. The task goes away. If I close this and go back, and refresh, you'll see that the workflow status is approved. I click on it, and it says it's been approved by me. And again, if I'd taken the task offline, I would get an Outlook, and there's a great integration story there, and I encourage you to experiment with it when you get a chance. Just a couple quick sections, and then I will take questions. I don't have a lot of demos for the other sections, which is why it's just have a couple slides on the other ones. For business processes, just what I would like to actually drive home is that we have something known as form services with SharePoint Server, and form services with SharePoint Server allows you to design forms very easily with the InfoPath client, but then you can publish these forms so that these forms can render through a browser. So a lot of people liked the InfoPath client, but a lot of people said, well, you know what, if I want to collect information from my citizens, if I want to collect information from my partners, I can't do that because not everyone will have InfoPath. So now with SharePoint Server 2007, you can design the forms, you can publish the forms, and then right through the browser, whether it's IE or Firefox, people can actually have that same rich experience. And we've used a lot of AJAX development techniques to actually have a really smooth experience. And here's some more information. And here's a screenshot. So again, this shows a screenshot of the application in IE, and it shows it in Firefox. And if I had time, the thing I like to show is I like to show the form in InfoPath. I like to show the form in the browser, and it's almost impossible to tell the difference. Okay, so BI, we've done a lot of work with the BI capabilities. The things I like to focus on is that Excel services is one of the new investments that fall into the BI categories of Office SharePoint Server. So with Office SharePoint Server, you can now publish Excel spreadsheets and have them rendered through a browser. So let's say you have a spreadsheet and you want people to see your revenue report, but you don't want people changing the formulas, or you don't want the people to see the formulas, or you don't want to send that spreadsheet out to 10,000 people through email. You can post this on a server, and now people can actually look at this file through a browser, and they don't have to have Excel. And it's all using DHTML. There's no ActiveX. And essentially what people get is a browser view of the Excel spreadsheet. That way you can protect your formulas. That way you can choose what you publish. That way you can also expose that information to developers through XML Web Services. So let's say I have a spreadsheet out there. It has all my rates. Let's say I'm a bank. A good example is a bank. So let's say a bank wants to publish the interest rates to their customers. They can publish the rates, but they can hide all the formulas that go into creating the rates. But now these formulas could be accessible by a developer writing some kind of custom application for a banker. And that's just a really simple example. But you can very easily see how this becomes very powerful in an organization. Other BI investments include rich KPI lists. So again, people can actually create a KPI list and choose to create indicators. And these indicators can be off other SharePoint items. They can be off information in an Excel spreadsheet. They can be off of SQL Server analysis reports. And we also have a rich report center. So you can actually go ahead and expose reports from SQL analysis services, and you can actually, from reporting services, and you can actually show all that information within a BI portal. In fact, one of the case studies we'll release from Microsoft in the near future is how we're using the report center to consolidate all the different reports and allow information workers to have one place to go for reporting. So let me just show you a quick demonstration. This is the last demo, and then I'll have 10 minutes for questions and answers. And by the way, here's the, before I do the demo, there are some screenshots you can take a look at. You'll notice that this is actually in a browser, and you'll notice that this is another dashboard example. So let's go ahead and share my application. And I realize I've said a lot because trying to cover WSS and Office SharePoint Server in an hour and a half is quite a challenge. So let me go ahead and share my browser again. And here is a site that's hosted, or a site that's been created by one of our program managers. And I just wanted to show you a really simple demo of what this looks like. So this is Excel services. Here's an Excel web access web part. And this web part is actually showing you an Excel spreadsheet, and you as the publisher can control what data you want to show. So it could be a chart, it could be certain rows, and the formulas are never exposed. And this is a read-only view. However, there is some interaction over here, so I can actually go ahead and choose, let's say I just want Australia, and click OK. Then as a user, I only see information from Australia. And the charts change and everything changes, and I highly encourage you to play with this functionality because it's very, very powerful. So this is just a quick demo. There's a lot of other good stuff out there, but I just wanted to highlight this because it's one of my favorite features in the product. So with that, I have 11 minutes, and I will start taking questions. Question 1, did you say that the product is out of beta and available via MSDN for downloading? Yes, that is correct. So the answer is yes. I have a couple free hours today, and I have a Microsoft SBS 2003 Premium with et cetera, et cetera. Can I download SharePoint 3.0 and in a couple of clicks do a full upgrade? I'm not the SBS expert, so I will have to get back to you, but from a Windows SharePoint Services perspective, the answer is yes. You can upgrade from WSS 2.0 to 3.0 quite quickly, and we actually have guidance and information on how you would do that. And I'll send a pointer to that at the end of this webcast. There's a pricing and licensing question on Standard and Enterprise. I encourage you to talk to your, first of all, go to Microsoft.com/SharePoint for information on licensing and pricing. I'm not the licensing and pricing expert, but you should take a look on the website, and you should also talk to your account team for the different types of licenses. Are these Outlook features reliant upon Exchange, or is it inherent in Outlook 2007 itself? That is a very good question. The answer is whatever I showed you today doesn't take advantage of Exchange. It's just an Outlook to SharePoint integration. Good question. Question about the calendar sync. After dragging and dropping, does your lunch show up in everyone's view of the calendar? That is correct. Anyone who is taking a look at the team calendar sees my lunch. Now, the example was kind of silly because I'm not going to, I'm not inviting everyone to lunch. But the point is, and it's probably more logical going the other way around. The point is that you can actually drag and drop items from your personal calendar and the team calendar seamlessly, and treat your team calendar just like you would a personal calendar. A gentleman asked, can Word 2007 write to Moz Wiki pages? We do not have that capability out of the box like we do for blogs. However, I think that would be an excellent excellent thing that if someone wanted to develop, they could. I do want to mention that there is one thing I didn't talk about. We do have the ability, we have a feature with Office SharePoint Server known as Smart Client Authoring. So you can author You can author web content in Word 2007, and you can actually go ahead and have that publish as a web page. And it's server-side Word to HTML conversion. And if you're interested in that, I encourage you to read up more about that. Are there any MOS 2007 virtual labs available? Yes, there are. They're available on our TechNet, and at the end, I will go ahead and send out a link to that. Greg asked, a gentleman asked about migration. There's a lot of great migration information, so I encourage you to check it out. And we've actually posted links and pointers from our blog, from our SharePoint team blog, that I highly encourage you to check out. I can't find the Ask button. I'm not sure what that means. Let's see. What about e-commerce applications and integration? We are going to be releasing some information on how Commerce Server 2007 integrates with Office SharePoint Server. However, if you're looking at any kind of e-commerce application, then you could absolutely integrate it, as long as that's, if it's built on ASP.NET, it's even easier. And there are a variety of integration points, right? So depending on what you're looking to do, the answer is absolutely yes. But I'm not sure what the specific integration is. I'm not sure I understand the specific integration that you're talking about. Is it possible to use rich text content management within existing ASP.NET page developed in VS 2005? That's a really good question. I mean, there are a variety of ways you could do that. A page layout is an ASPX page that you develop in VS 2005. I mean, it could be you could develop the wireframe in VS, where you could just use SharePoint Designer. If you want to use this outside of SharePoint, outside the SharePoint system, then you would have to either use an iframe call or use the APIs or XML Web Services to grab that content. But it's absolutely possible, but you'd have to do a little bit of custom work there. Could I map a drive letter to my document library so I can easily access? Yes, you can. So we have some web app support, so you can actually go ahead and say, I want to map eDrive to whack whack blah whack blah whack blah. I'm just choosing a few. Can the BDC connect to an Oracle database? Yes. It can connect to any structured system that is accessible through ADO.NET, which means any database, or any line of business application that has XML Web Services exposed. So by that definition, Oracle databases will work. Let's see. There's a lot of questions here. My organization is just now tapping the surface of SPS 2003. When should we consider upgrade 2007? 2007 is available today. So depending on how far you are, I recommend moving to 2007 sooner versus later. When it comes to calendar syncing, is it possible to use Active Sync to have those items to a Windows mobile device? I'm not familiar with Windows mobile devices and Active Sync, so I can't answer that question. But it is an Outlook to SharePoint feature. So if Active Sync uses Exchange, then my guess is no. Someone asked to keep doing webcasts. I think that's great, and I'll try to do as many as I can. Is Outlook 2007 required for the integration with MOS 2007? I'm not sure what that means. Outlook 2007 adds a lot of integration capabilities, but it's not required. I mean, you can clearly use SharePoint. You can use SharePoint Server 2007 without Office if you wanted to, but if you have Office, whether it's 2003 or 2007, you get a really rich integration experience if your information workers are using Office. There are a lot of other questions, and unfortunately we're running out of time. I'm going to answer one more, just scrolling down. The last question I'm going to answer is, how easy will it be to migrate SPS 2001 to SPS 2007. So first of all, it's MOS 2007, just a small nit there. SPS 2001 to MOS 2007, we have released some migration tools, and we'll continue releasing them. That right now, I believe they're on CodePlex. And my recommendation is you want to look at using some of those tools to migrate your data, so moving your data from SPS 2001 to MOS 2007. But then a lot of the MOS 2007 concepts, you'll probably have to look at what you were doing in 2001 and then migrate that case by case to MOS 2007. So the short answer is you can move your data using the migration tools that a gentleman by the name of Timo Force has published, I believe, on CodePlex. So with that, I'm going to try to use one of the neat features here, and I'm going to use a whiteboard, and I'm going to write a couple of the places to go. So the first place I recommend going, I think everyone should actually go ahead and subscribe to this. 1 second, I'm trying to, okay, here's text. So the first thing I recommend is everyone should subscribe to blogs.msdn.com/SharePoint. This is our SharePoint team blog. Can everyone see that? Well, tough.
I can see it, yes.
Okay, great. And the other thing, and let me actually go ahead and get this for you. The other thing that I recommend people do, and let me spend a second getting it, is I'm going to put some other links out there for you guys. The e-learning link is actually a really good one that has two things. That has links to the virtual labs and actually has links to e-learning. So if you're looking, like what I covered was very, very quick, and what I covered was a lot in the last hour and a half or so. If you go to this link, you will find pointers to virtual labs, and you will find pointers to online clinics, and you'll find pointers to books you can download. And the online clinics, we have 4 clinics. We have a WSS Dev Clinic, we have a MOS Dev Clinic, we have a WSS IT Pro Clinic, and we have a MOS IT Pro Clinic. So I highly recommend checking this out and diving deeper into the technology. So with that, and I know there are other questions that have been unanswered. I apologize for that, but I encourage you to learn more about Office SharePoint Server 2007. I encourage you to fill out the feedback. We always look at the feedback so we can do better, or in this case, I can do better. And I realize we've covered a lot, but hopefully this gets you started. And the one thing I regret not having is a link of resources. But if there are 2 resources, these are the 2 you want to take a look at. And be on the look for a lot of other content that's coming down. So in the next 2-3 months, you'll see a lot of content. And one of the pieces of content that you absolutely need to be on the lookout for is we are creating a community DVD. So my team is creating a community DVD, which will have the RTM VPC of Office SharePoint Server that will allow you to very easily start playing with the functionality, and along with it, it will include a lot of other resources like conference content, like videos, like the SDK, and we hope to have that available by February, so in the next 2 months or so. We will post it on the SharePoint team blog when it's available. So if you just wait a couple weeks, you'll be able to order that for a nominal fee, maybe $2-3 or something. So that way you can have all that information at your fingertips. But until then, go to TechNet, go to MSDN, download it, play with it, and subscribe to the team blog. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend, and happy holidays.
Great. Well, thanks, Arpan. And I'm just going to remind everybody, thanks so much for all those great questions, lots of great things that were coming in there. I'm going to give you a moment here to copy down those URLs that Arpan's posted there. I do want to post up a survey here. But before I do that, I want to remind you, too, that I will be posting the survey here. And if you want to print a PDF of the slides, you can go into that File menu in your upper navigation bar, and you'll be able to get those as well. So we're going to post it over here to the survey now. And just want to let you know that your feedback is very valuable. So if you just take a moment and fill out that survey before you log out, we do appreciate that. And while you're doing that, I also want to let you know that if you'd like to Today's meeting was used, today's webcast was presented using the Microsoft Office Live Meeting technology. So if you want to get a free 14-day trial, you can go to Microsoft.com/presentlive and you'll be able to do that. So with that being said, again, I'll remind you your feedback is very valuable, so take that moment, fill out the survey before you log out. We do like to pass along that information to our speakers and get them all of that information so we can better do these webcasts for you next time as well. So I'm going to extend a special thanks to Arpan for today's presentation. Thanks so much, Arpan. I really appreciate that. Lots of great information that you shared. And that concludes today's TechNet Live meeting. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Our audience